They used my retirement savings to throw a party I wasn't invited to. My son said I wouldn't enjoy the noise, and my daughter-in-law promised to bring me leftovers. I said nothing. No fight. No guilt. By the end of the month, the accounts were frozen, the trust was dissolved, and the power of attorney they'd used behind my back was gone. I'd built a life they thought they could spend. They were wrong. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The buzz of Marilyn Cooper's phone came just as she was folding laundry in the quiet hum of her Chesterfield home. The message lit up the screen. A text from Denise, an old coworker from the district office. The gala looked beautiful. You looked amazing. Marilyn blinked at the words, reread them twice, and frowned. Gala? What gala? She hadn't been to anything fancier than the church potluck in months. Her thumbs hovered over the screen before typing back. Denise, what gala are you talking about? The response came instantly, cheerful and oblivious. The family legacy event. Saw you tagged on Facebook. Your kids outdid themselves. A small, cold knot formed in Marilyn's chest. She set the phone down, walked to her computer in the den, and opened Facebook. The loading screen seemed to drag forever, until finally a carousel of bright, polished photos filled the monitor. There they were, her children. Amber, all gleaming hair and perfect smile, in a champagne dress that shimmered under the ballroom lights. Tina, commanding the stage in front of a banner that read, Mom's Fundraiser, honoring the legacy of Marilyn Cooper. Even Logan, who could barely show up to Thanksgiving sober last year, looked freshly shaved and posing with a drink in hand. Marilyn stared at the photos, each one feeling like a punch to the ribs. She scrolled through dozens of grinning faces, her family, her grandchildren, even her sister-in-law, all gathered under chandeliers and floral arches. And in the center of every group shot, a poster-sized photo of her from years ago, smiling, unaware. Not one picture of her there in person. The comments beneath the photos flooded her vision. Such a beautiful event. Marilyn raised a wonderful family. What a touching tribute to your mom. Her mouth went dry. She clicked through another album, then another, until she reached one of Amber holding a microphone beside a check presentation board. $25,000. Community Legacy Scholarship Fund. The check was printed with Marilyn's name. Her stomach turned. She opened her banking app, mostly out of instinct, not expectation, and the numbers blinked up like a slap. $9,200. Travis Event Center. The transaction date matched the gala photos posted just 24 hours ago. For a long moment, Marilyn sat completely still, staring at the line item. The room around her seemed to recede. The faint tick of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the light catching the dust motes in the air. Her pulse was the only sound she could hear, heavy and deliberate. She scrolled back to the photos. Tina stood arm in arm with the venue manager, Travis Event Center, the tag read. Behind her, a huge sign said, Cooper Family Legacy Celebration. Her throat tightened. They'd used her money. Her mind flickered through recent memories. The way Tina had mentioned family plans for the weekend but offered no details. How Logan had been oddly attentive over the phone. How Amber had dropped off flowers just because. It all rearranged itself now, falling into terrible, perfect clarity. Marilyn leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temple, willing her heartbeat to slow. She felt foolish, humiliated even, that she hadn't seen it coming. But more than hurt, there was something colder taking root beneath it. They had built a celebration of her life, without inviting her, without even telling her. And they'd done it with her own money. The air in the house felt heavier, the evening light shifting through the blinds in gold slats that seemed to mock the photos on her screen. Her phone buzzed again. Denise again. Another message. A photo this time. You and your kids looked so happy together. Warms my heart. Marilyn stared at the image. Tina, Amber, and Logan clustered around a three-tiered cake shaped like an open ledger book. In honor of Mom's dedication, piped in elegant icing. She didn't reply. Instead, she opened her desk drawer, pulled out the small notepad where she tracked monthly bills, and tore out a clean sheet. In the corner, she wrote the date. Then, beneath it, one line in her precise, looping handwriting, $9,200, Travis Event Center, unauthorized. She capped her pen, folded the paper neatly, and slid it into the front of her planner. Outside, a dog barked somewhere down the street. The sound felt distant, almost unreal. Marilyn looked once more at the glowing computer screen, her children laughing under the banner that bore her name, then reached forward and shut the laptop. The soft click of it closing felt final. She sat there for a long while in silence, her reflection faintly visible in the darkened screen, her expression unreadable. Then, very slowly, she whispered to the empty room, "All right, let's see what you've started." The next morning, the house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes even the hum of the refrigerator sound like accusation. Marilyn sat at the kitchen table with her planner open, yesterday's folded note tucked neatly beside her coffee cup. The black ink on the page looked bolder this morning, almost defiant. $9,100, Travis Event Center, unauthorized. She reached for her phone. Her hand didn't shake at first, until her thumb hovered over the family group chat. The little icons stared back at her. Tina, Logan, Amber. She typed slowly, carefully. "Did you use my card for something?" She reread it twice before hitting send. The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately, the three dots pulsing like a heartbeat. Then Tina's reply dropped in, brisk and coded in that managerial tone she'd used on teachers and relatives alike. "It was a joint thing. We'll explain soon." No apology, no details. Just that polished vagueness that had always kept her in control. Seconds later, Logan responded with nothing but a... Marilyn stared at the emoji, the simplicity of it almost insulting. She could picture him on his couch, sending that lazy little thumb while Amber probably sat beside him, whispering what to say, or what not to. Her jaw tightened. She didn't respond. Instead, she closed the phone, set its screen down, and pressed her fingers together until the tremor in them eased. The silence felt thick enough to choke on. When the phone buzzed again a few minutes later, she didn't look. She just sat there, breathing, her gaze unfocused on the pattern of sunlight sliding across the table. The first layer of shock had worn off. What settled beneath it wasn't rage, not yet. It was precision. By the time she met Donna later that afternoon, the mask was back in place. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and old wood polish, the same place they'd been meeting every Friday for almost a decade. Donna was already at their corner booth, hair tied up, glasses perched on the end of her nose, stirring sugar into her tea. "Morning, sunshine," she said, looking up. "You look like you've been through a storm." Marilyn slid into the seat across from her. "Something like that." Donna cocked an eyebrow. "The kids again?" Marilyn hesitated, then exhaled through her nose. "They threw a gala. For me. Without me." Donna froze mid-stir, spoon clinking softly against porcelain. "You're joking?" Marilyn shook her head. "Used my money to pay for it. $9,200. Your money?" "Directly from my checking." Donna's expression sharpened, lines around her mouth deepening. "You confront them?" "I texted. And?" "Tina said it was a joint thing." Logan sent a thumbs up. Donna blinked once, slowly, like she needed a moment to process the sheer gall. Then she let out a dry laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Unbelievable. They really think you're still the same woman who just lets it slide. Marilyn's lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. They always think that. For a moment, the only sound was the hiss of the espresso machine and the muted chatter of other patrons. Outside, cars rolled lazily down Midlothian Turnpike, the fall sunlight catching their windshields. Donna leaned forward, voice low. Listen to me, Mayor. Don't confront. Document. Marilyn looked up. Document. You heard me. Every text, every charge, every word. Let them dig their own hole first. Marilyn studied her friend's face, the same pragmatic calm Donna had worn in every courtroom and office she'd ever worked in. There was no pity in her eyes, only strategy. I'm serious, Donna added. You start swinging now, they'll spin it, make you look forgetful, confused. But if you stay quiet, she tapped her temple, they won't see it coming. Marilyn nodded slowly, her mind already beginning to organize the plan. All right. Donna reached across the table and covered her hand. You've given those kids everything. Time they learn what happens when you take without asking. A silence stretched between them, comfortable, steady. Marilyn looked down at their hands, then back up. I'm not angry, she said softly. Donna smirked. That's what makes it dangerous. Marilyn's phone buzzed again on the table. The name flashing across the screen made both women glance down. Tina Cooper? Donna raised an eyebrow. You gonna answer? Marilyn looked at the phone, then let it ring out, the vibrations rattling faintly against the wood. No, she said, eyes steady on the screen until it went dark. I think I'll start documenting. Sunday morning came with the gray wash of a sky that couldn't decide between rain and restraint. Marilyn sat in her car outside the Copper Skillet Diner, watching the drizzle collect along the edge of the windshield. Inside, she could already see them, her 3 children, clustered in a booth like a living family portrait that no longer included her. Tina sat upright, her posture commanding even when she wasn't speaking, scrolling through her phone with that air of permanent busyness. Amber, all gloss and poise, leaned close to her reflection in the window, reapplying lipstick in a practiced motion. Logan, heavy-eyed and rumpled, stabbed half-heartedly at a plate of pancakes that probably weren't his first choice, but definitely the cheapest. Marilyn inhaled deeply. She opened her purse, double-checked the small digital recorder tucked in the side pocket, and pressed record. A tiny red light blinked once, then held steady. She stepped out of the car and entered the diner. The bell over the door gave a half-hearted jingle as the scent of coffee and fried batter folded around her. Amber looked up first, smile wide, rehearsed. Mom, there you are. Marilyn offered a calm nod. Morning. Logan scooted over, making space for her beside him. Got you coffee already. 2 creams, 1 sugar. Thanks, she said softly, sliding into the booth. Her voice betrayed nothing. Tina didn't look up from her phone until the silence stretched too long. So, I'm guessing this is about the messages. Marilyn's gaze drifted to the laminated menu she had no intention of reading. It is. Tina finally set the phone aside, hands folded neatly. Okay then. We probably should have explained sooner. The gala was a family thing, Mom. For the family name, we assumed you'd be proud. Amber jumped in with a bright laugh. Yeah, it was meant to celebrate you. We figured you wouldn't want the stress of planning it yourself. You always say how exhausting that kind of stuff is. Marilyn turned her eyes toward Amber. You mean being excluded? Amber's smile faltered. No, that's not what I meant. Marilyn waved a hand gently. Relax. I'm just clarifying. Tina leaned forward. Mom, it wasn't meant to hurt you. It was about honoring everything you've done. We wanted it to be a surprise. That's all. Marilyn's expression remained unchanged. Her tone was light, almost conversational. And the charge? Logan finally looked up, fork halfway to his mouth. What charge? The one for $9,200. He blinked once, shrugged. Oh, that. You never spend it anyway, Mom. Something subtle flickered behind her calm, an invisible shutter closing over her eyes. I see. The table went still. Even the waitress, sensing tension, passed by without asking about refills. Outside, the drizzle picked up, the sound of it ticking against the windows like impatient fingers. Tina broke the silence first, voice brisk again. Look, we'll make it up to you. Maybe do a small dinner. Just the family. You'll see it was all for a good cause. Marilyn smiled faintly, like she was humoring a child. Oh, I already see it. Amber shifted, uneasy. You're not mad, right? I mean, everyone said the event was perfect. It really made the family look good. Marilyn let her eyes rest on her youngest daughter's polished expression. Yes, I imagine it did. Tina exhaled sharply. Mom, don't make this into something it's not. You've always told us to think big, to do things that last. Marilyn's gaze dropped to her coffee cup, steam rising in delicate curls. I did. She stirred it slowly, then added, almost to herself. Guess I should have been clearer about who I meant to last. Amber frowned, confused. Logan reached for his phone, eager for distraction. Anyway, Tina said, reaching for control again. Let's just move forward. No need to dwell. Marilyn lifted her head, eyes sharp now. No need at all. She reached into her purse, her hand brushing the recorder as she withdrew her wallet to leave cash for her untouched meal. The red light blinked softly in the shadows of the open pocket. Enjoy your breakfast, she said, sliding out of the booth. Tina blinked. You're leaving already? Marilyn looked over her shoulder. Oh, I got what I came for. The bell over the door chimed again as she stepped into the gray light. The rain had stopped, leaving the air clean and cool. She walked to her car, the faint hum of the recorder still running in her purse. Sliding into the driver's seat, she sat there a moment, watching droplets chase down the windshield. Then she picked up the device, pressed stop, and the silence that followed felt heavy and deliberate. Marilyn set it carefully beside her on the passenger seat, her reflection catching faintly in the rearview mirror. You never spend it anyway, she whispered, repeating Logan's words under her breath. Her smile, small and cold, met her own eyes in the mirror. No, she said quietly, but I do invest it. And with that, she turned the key in the ignition. Monday morning arrived clean and sharp, the kind of autumn morning that smelled faintly of cold metal and wet leaves. Marilyn dressed with the same precision she once reserved for school board meetings, pressed gray slacks, cream sweater, silver earrings her late husband had given her for their 25th anniversary. Her movements were deliberate, unhurried, the kind of calm that wasn't peace, it was control. By 9:30, she was parked outside Crescent Valley Credit Union, the same branch she'd used for nearly 30 years. The brick building sat squat and sunlit at the corner of Broad Street, a place that had seen her through college savings, mortgage payments, and every small act of survival that came after her husband died. Inside, the air smelled faintly of copier toner and citrus cleaner. The tellers smiled in that trained, automatic way, unaware that today was different. Morning, Mrs. Cooper, said a young woman behind the counter. Cindy, according to her badge. Need to make a deposit? Not exactly, dear, Marilyn said, her voice smooth. I'd like to speak to your branch manager, please. It's about account access. Cindy's smile faltered just slightly. Of course. One moment. While she waited, Marilyn rested both hands on her purse, feeling the reassuring weight of the small recorder inside. She didn't need it today, not yet, but she liked knowing it was there. Proof. was its own kind of armor. A few minutes later, a man in a navy suit appeared, mid-40s, kind eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Cooper, I'm Jacob. Why don't you come back to my office?" His office smelled like paper and the faint musk of coffee left too long on a warmer. Marilyn sat across from him, folding her hands on her lap. "So," Jacob began, polite but careful. "How can I help you this morning?" She met his gaze evenly. "I want to make a few changes. Quietly, if possible." Jacob smiled, professional and neutral. "Of course. What kind of changes are we talking about?" Marilyn slid her checkbook across the desk, open to the latest withdrawal slip. The $9,200 entry glared up in dark ink. "That charge wasn't mine," she said softly. "It was family." Jacob's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry to hear that. Was it a shared account?" "It was," she said. "A joint savings account. I think it's time that stopped." He nodded slowly. "We can absolutely freeze it pending your authorization." "Good," she said. "Do it today." While he typed, Marilyn looked around his office, the framed certificates, the potted fern leaning toward the window, the small stack of client thank you cards, all the quiet tokens of trust. Jacob turned the monitor slightly. "Once the freeze is complete, we can open a new account in your name only. Would you like to link it to your checking?" "Yes," she said. Then, after a pause, "Actually, I'd like to go a step further. I want it set up as a living trust." He blinked. "A living trust?" Marilyn nodded. "I want everything consolidated. Accounts, savings, certificates. Transfer it all." Jacob hesitated just long enough for concern to flicker in his eyes. "That's a fairly major shift. Are you certain?" Her voice didn't waver. "Quite." He leaned back, sensing something in her tone that needed no elaboration. "Understood. We'll handle it carefully." As he worked, Marilyn took a quiet satisfaction in the rhythm of the keyboard tapping. Every keystroke felt like the closing of a door her children didn't even know existed. When Jacob asked for a backup contact, she smiled faintly. "Donna Chase," she said. "Old friend, former legal clerk. She's my emergency contact from now on." He nodded, jotting the name. "Got it." The process took nearly an hour. When it was finished, Jacob turned the monitor again for her to review. "Here's the confirmation," he said. "Funds transferred. All under your name only." Marilyn studied the figures, line after line of her life's work, her careful saving, every after-school shift and lonely tax refund, now quietly sealed behind her name alone. Jacob cleared his throat. "Would you like to leave anything in the joint account?" Marilyn's eyes softened, a trace of irony curling at the edge of her lips. $100 should do." He hesitated. "Just 100? "Just enough," she said. He nodded again, printed the final documents, and slid them across the desk for her signature. Her pen moved smoothly, her handwriting as precise as ever. When it was done, Jacob stood to shake her hand. "I'll make sure this remains confidential. Anything else I can do for you today?" Marilyn rose, her posture regal but relaxed. "You've done plenty." Outside, the sunlight had grown brighter, breaking through the last wisps of cloud. She paused by her car, opening her purse just long enough to glance at the small planner inside. The folded note from 2 days ago was still there, but she added a new line beneath it in her looping script. "Transferred. All accounts. Remaining balance, $100. As she slid behind the wheel, her phone buzzed once in her bag. A message from Amber lit the screen. "Hey, Mom. Can you send a little from savings? Rent hit early this month." Marilyn stared at the words for a long, quiet moment, then locked the phone without replying. Her reflection caught in the windshield. A faint smile, unreadable but sure. "Withdrawals have consequences," she murmured, turning the ignition. The engine purred to life, smooth and certain. And somewhere, in the Cooper family group chat, a storm was quietly forming, one transaction away from discovery. By Wednesday, the first chill of fall had settled over Richmond, the kind that turned breath into mist and made the city smell faintly of wood smoke and wet leaves. Marilyn pulled her wool coat tighter as she crossed the marble lobby of Martin and Associates, Estate Law. The office was warm, quiet, and expensive in a way that didn't show off. Soft jazz hummed under the sound of papers turning somewhere down the hall. She was greeted by a receptionist with calm professionalism who offered her coffee and guided her to a private office lined with dark wood shelves. "Mrs. Cooper," said Reese Martin, rising from behind his desk. He was tall, composed, and spoke in that steady lawyer's cadence that made even bad news sound reasonable. "It's good to finally meet you. Donna told me you'd be stopping by." Marilyn smiled faintly, removing her gloves. "Then she also told you why." Reese gestured toward the leather chair opposite his. "Let's make sure I have it straight then. You're looking to restructure your estate?" She settled into the chair, smoothing her skirt. "Restructure isn't quite the word. More like clarify." "All right," he said, opening a thick folder. "You currently have 3 beneficiaries listed, your children, and shared power of attorney between your eldest and your son, correct?" "I did," Marilyn said. "Not anymore." Reese glanced up, pen stilled. "You'd like to remove them?" "I'd like to remove all 3, she said evenly. "From power of attorney, the living will, and any rights to decision-making if I'm incapacitated." He nodded slowly, adjusting his glasses. "Understood. And in their place?" "Donna Chase," Marilyn said. "Executor, trustee, everything. She knows the paperwork better than I do, and she's the only person who's earned it." Reese's expression softened with something like respect. "Ms. Chase did mention she's a former legal clerk. Good choice." Marilyn leaned back slightly, watching the fountain pen glide across his notepad. Her pulse was steady, her mind sharper than it had been in years. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't reacting. She was directing. Reese looked up again. "And your assets? Would you like to keep the trust within the family line?" Marilyn's lips curved. "No, not anymore. I want the trust to fund annual scholarships for district cafeteria workers and their children. Quietly. No press releases, no family statements." That caught his attention. "That's a generous move." "It's overdue," she said simply. "They're the ones who kept those schools running. The least I can do is return the favor." Reese nodded, typing quickly. "All right. I'll add a clause specifying perpetual scholarship funding and a privacy directive. That means only the trustee, Donna, will have control." "Perfect." For a moment, silence filled the office except for the rhythmic tap of keys. Reese finally set his pen down and leaned forward. "You do realize, Mrs. Cooper, they'll find out eventually." Marilyn's eyes met his, calm and deliberate. "That's the point." He studied her for a beat, then smiled, almost imperceptibly. "I see." They spent the next hour reviewing pages of legal language, trust protections, contest clauses, incapacity provisions. Reese explained everything twice, but Marilyn hardly needed it. She'd spent her life managing numbers. Deceit didn't erase discipline. When they finished, Reese slid the final signature page across the desk. "This locks it in. No reversions, no shared control." Marilyn took the pen, the weight of it familiar and grounding. She signed her name in a firm, looping script, the ink soaking in like a seal. "There," she said softly. "That's settled." Reese gathered the papers. "I'll file these with the registrar and send a certified copy to your home. And just to confirm, Donna Chase will hold your successor power of attorney?" "Yes. If anything happens to me, she knows exactly what to do." He nodded. I have to say, Mrs. Cooper, most clients your age avoid making bold changes, but you seem certain. She rose, slipping her gloves back on. Certainty comes easier when you stop asking for permission. He smiled faintly at that. Well said. As she left the office, the afternoon sun had begun to pierce through the clouds, reflecting off the glass doors in a way that momentarily blinded her. It felt fitting, like stepping into light after a long tunnel. By the time she reached her car, her phone buzzed in her purse. A soft, familiar chime from the bank's mobile app. She frowned and pulled it out. Alert. Overdraft notice, joint account, 62 to 50. For a second, she thought she'd misread it. Then, realization spread across her face in slow, cold clarity. Her children had tried to use the old account, the one she'd left with exactly $100. Marilyn stared at the screen, the corners of her mouth curling in something between amusement and disbelief. Then she unlocked the phone, took a screenshot, and saved it under a new folder she'd labeled 2 days ago. Documentation. Her thumb lingered on the image, her reflection ghosted faintly in the glass. Well, she murmured, sliding the phone back into her purse. Looks like class is in session. She started the car, the low rumble echoing in the crisp air. Behind her, the law office windows glinted like mirrors, clean, untouchable, and holding secrets no one in her family yet suspected. Thursday morning broke with the sound of the landline ringing, a noise Marilyn hadn't heard in months. It echoed through the house like something from a past life. She let it ring twice before letting the machine pick up, her own recorded voice, brisk, polite, distant, playing back at her. You've reached Marilyn Cooper. Leave what's necessary. A beat of silence, then Logan's voice. Mom? The debit card isn't working. Did something happen? Call me. The message ended with that telltale click of a man who'd already moved on to his next problem, not expecting an answer. Marilyn stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, staring out the window as a breeze rippled the dogwood leaves in the yard. The world looked painfully ordinary, but the words, "Did something happen?" still hung in the air like the faint smell of smoke. She didn't call back. By mid-afternoon, the quiet satisfaction of her silence had taken root. She spent the next hour at her desk, labeling new folders on her laptop. Estate, scholarship, documentation, each one a brick in the wall she was building between herself and them. The phone buzzed again around 2. A text from Logan this time. Card still declined. Bank says it's restricted. You okay? Then another, seconds later. We need to fix this. Tina's gonna freak. Marilyn read them both without expression. Then she set the phone face down and returned to her paperwork. Let them scramble, she thought. Let them taste inconvenience. Across town, in a bright home office filled with planners and scented candles, Tina Cooper was already freaking. Her emails flew like shrapnel. 2. Crescent Valley Credit Union Support. From marilyncooper.accountagmail.com. Subject, urgent, debit card issue. Immediate release needed. Hello, this is Marilyn Cooper. There seems to be a freeze on my account ending in 4279. I need this resolved today. I'm traveling soon and require access. Please confirm my card is active. Best, Marilyn Cooper. It was tidy, convincing, down to the slightly formal tone her mother always used in writing. Tina even set the signature block with warm regards. She sat back in her chair, satisfied, imagining a bank clerk somewhere moving money back into motion. It took less than an hour for that illusion to crack. At Crescent Valley, Cindy, the young teller who'd greeted Marilyn earlier in the week, noticed the incoming message. The writing was close, but not quite right. The phrasing tripped something in her instinct. Maybe it was the lack of Marilyn's usual sign-off, or the lowercase OK instead of OK in the metadata. She clicked a few keys, cross-referencing the message origin. The sender's IP traced not to Chesterfield, but to an apartment complex in Short Pump. She looked up, concern tightening her brow. Then she called her branch manager. By the next morning, a fraud alert was quietly added to Marilyn's profile. No public flags, no locked cards. Just a private notation that said, "Potential family impersonation. Contact client directly." When Marilyn answered the phone that Friday, her voice was calm, curious. "Mrs. Cooper?" Cindy's voice was warm but cautious. "Just wanted to check something odd that came across our system. Someone emailed us yesterday pretending to be you." Marilyn's lips curved slightly. "Pretending?" "Yes, ma'am. They used your name and account number, but the email address wasn't yours. We thought you should know." Marilyn exhaled slowly, as though she'd been expecting this. "I appreciate that, Cindy. You handled it perfectly." Cindy hesitated. "Would you like us to send over documentation of the attempt?" "Yes," Marilyn said. "Print everything, please. I'd like a physical copy for my records." She could hear the smile in Cindy's voice. "I'll prepare that right away. Should I hold it for pickup?" "That would be lovely." When the call ended, Marilyn sat very still for a long moment, her hand resting lightly on the receiver. Then she reached for her phone and sent a single message to Donna. "Meet me at the cafe tomorrow. Bring that portable printer you love so much." Saturday morning, the cafe buzzed with the usual weekend crowd: laptop screens, espresso foam, and conversations that blurred together like static. At their corner table, Donna fed printed pages into a slim plastic folder while Marilyn sipped her tea, serene as ever. "So they tried to fake an email?" Donna asked, arching an eyebrow. "Bold move." Marilyn smirked faintly. "Desperation makes people sloppy." Donna slid the papers across the table. "Here, fraud documentation, time-stamped, banks keeping the originals." Marilyn glanced through the pages, each one stamped with Crescent Valley Credit Union, internal correspondence. The details were there in black and white: the false address, the timestamp, the request to unfreeze the card. She tucked the folder neatly into her bag. "Good. Now it's official." Donna studied her friend's face. "You look pleased." "I'm organized," Marilyn corrected. "Big difference." A soft laugh escaped Donna. "You're terrifying when you get organized." Marilyn's smile deepened, eyes glinting with quiet satisfaction. "They think I'm still waiting to react. What they don't realize," she said, folding the folder closed, "is that I'm already 10 steps ahead." Donna raised her coffee cup in a mock toast. "To documentation." Marilyn clinked her teacup gently against it. "To evidence." Just then, Marilyn's phone buzzed on the table. A new message lit the screen. Tina Cooper. "Mom, this is serious. We can't access any of the funds. You need to call me right now." Marilyn stared at the words, expression unreadable. Then she locked the screen, slid the phone into her purse, and lifted her tea again. "I believe," she said softly, "that's exactly what they deserve." Outside, wind stirred the fallen leaves along the sidewalk, scattering them like loose pages. And somewhere across town, 3 adult children stared at a frozen account, realizing, for the first time, that the balance of power had shifted, and the woman they'd underestimated was no longer playing defense. The invitation went out on Sunday morning, short and stripped of emotion. "Dinner at my place. 7 p.m. Don't bring anything." Marilyn hit send before she could second-guess it. She didn't owe explanations, not for her silence, not for the freeze, not for the slow rearrangement of the entire empire her children thought they owned. By the time the doorbell rang that evening, the house was immaculate. The dining table gleamed under the light of the chandelier. Silverware lined up in perfect symmetry, cloth napkins folded tight, pot. Sheer roast scent faintly perfuming the air, though she hadn't cooked it. A small slow cooker hummed on the counter with nothing inside but warm water and a single bay leaf. Let them smell comfort, she thought. Let them sit in expectation. She opened the door to find all three of them together, their unity already fraying around the edges. Tina stepped in first, heels clicking on the tile, her voice sharp with forced calm. "Mom, we really need to talk about what's going on." Amber followed, eyes darting around the kitchen, restless, her smile stretched too thin. "It smells amazing in here." Logan trailed behind, hands stuffed in his pockets, already scanning the room for an escape route. "Hey, Mom, you look good." Marilyn smiled politely, closing the door behind them. "Sit down." They took their usual seats at the dining table, the same configuration they'd held since childhood. Tina nearest the head, Amber across from her, Logan in the middle. Old habits, she thought. Even now they clung to hierarchy. Tina folded her hands, businesslike. "Let's start with the obvious, the accounts. You've frozen them, and now the credit union is flagging activity. We couldn't even get a straight answer from the bank." Marilyn moved slowly, deliberately, setting a folder on the table. "You got a very straight answer. You just didn't like it." Amber crossed her arms. "Mom, come on. You're being dramatic. This was supposed to be for the family. We thought we were all on the same page." "Interesting," Marilyn said softly, "since you didn't actually invite me to that page." Tina leaned forward. "Don't do this. You know we didn't mean anything by that. It was a joint thing?" Marilyn interrupted, her tone mild, surgical. "That's what you said before." Logan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Can we please not do this again? It's all a big misunderstanding. We wanted to do something nice, Mom. That's it." Marilyn reached into her folder and began laying out printed papers one by one. Bank statements, fraud reports, copies of emails, everything arranged in a neat, damning line down the center of the table. Tina's eyes flicked across the documents. "Where did you get these?" "From the source," Marilyn said. "Including your little impersonation attempt, Tina. The credit union was kind enough to forward the correspondence." Amber froze mid-step, her pacing halted. "Wait, what impersonation?" Tina shot her a glare. "That's not what it sounds like." "Oh, I think it sounds exactly right," Marilyn said, sliding another page forward. "And I even have a record of that brunch we shared. I remember you all said some interesting things." Her purse sat beside her chair. She reached into it, pressed a small button, and placed the recorder on the table. The red light blinked once. Then came the playback. Her children's voices, unmistakable, spilling from the tiny speaker. "It was for the family name. We assumed you'd be proud. We figured you wouldn't want the stress of planning it. You never spend it anyway." The last sentence, Logan's, landed like a slap. No one moved. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to cut out, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Amber's face drained of color. Tina's jaw clenched so hard her earrings trembled. Logan looked down at his hands, then up at his mother, guilt clouding whatever charm he might have mustered. Finally, Tina broke the silence. "So what, you recorded us? That's... Mom, that's manipulative." Marilyn didn't flinch. "No, dear, that's documentation." Amber spoke next, voice trembling just slightly. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." Marilyn leaned back, folding her hands neatly on the table. "Oh, I know. You rarely mean it. But intent doesn't undo consequence." Tina slammed her hand on the table, the sound cracking through the quiet. "You're trying to punish us." Marilyn's expression remained steady, almost kind. "I'm teaching you." For a long, taut moment, the only sound was Logan's slow exhale. Then he pushed his chair back. "This is pointless," he muttered. "We're family. This whole thing, It's just miscommunication. Marilyn reached over, pressed stop on the recorder, and picked it up. Then consider this, she said quietly. My way of clarifying communication. Tina stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. You'll regret this when we're gone. Marilyn smiled faintly, gathering her papers. I already did. She walked them to the door, opened it, and waited. No hugs, no promises, no reconciliations, just the cold rush of October air pushing through the doorway. When they finally left, still bickering, still denying, she locked the door behind them and stood for a moment in the silence that followed. The house seemed to breathe again, lighter, freer. On the table, one of the printed statements remained. A line of numbers she hadn't noticed before, highlighted faintly in yellow. Scheduled payment attempt. Declined. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of curiosity slicing through her composure. And so, she murmured, switching off the dining room light, it begins. By Tuesday, the last leaves of October had begun to fall, spinning slow and defiant against a sharp wind. Marilyn drove past the rows of gold and rust-colored trees lining Midlothian Turnpike, her hands steady on the wheel, the GPS softly guiding her toward Travis Event Center. The same name that had burned itself into her checking account statement. The same place where her family had celebrated her legacy without her. When she pulled into the parking lot, the building looked sterile in daylight. Large glass panels, crisp white siding, the kind of modern space meant to flatter vanity more than memory. Balloons and banners were long gone, but the faint outlines of tape and glitter still clung to the walkway like ghosts. Inside, a young woman at the front desk looked up, smiling professionally. Good afternoon. Do you have a booking? Marilyn smiled back, her tone perfectly polite. Not today, dear. I just came by to pick up a receipt from an event you hosted a couple weeks ago. The Cooper family legacy celebration. Recognition flashed across the woman's face. Oh, that was a beautiful event. I think Travis handled that one. One moment. Let me see if he's available. As the receptionist made the call, Marilyn's eyes moved across the lobby. Photos of past events lined the wall, weddings, charity galas, award banquets, all glowing with laughter and lights. Then, on the bottom row, she spotted it, a framed photo of her own family's event. The sight made her stop cold. There was Tina on stage, microphone in hand, a projection behind her reading Honoring Marilyn Cooper. In the corner, the venue logo, Travis Event Center, stood like a watermark of irony. The woman's voice cut through her trance. He'll be right out, ma'am. Moments later, a man in a navy blazer appeared from a hallway, mid-50s, tall, and carrying the air of someone who prided himself on good customer service. Mrs. Cooper? He asked, extending his hand. Travis Long. I managed your family's event. Her handshake was steady, cool. So, I've been told. He blinked, unsure whether to smile. Well, it turned out beautifully. Your children were wonderful to work with, though I'm sorry you couldn't make it. They said you were sick that week. Marilyn's lips parted in a faint, amused exhale. Is that so? Travis nodded. Yeah. Tina said you caught something right before the big night. We even kept your table open, front and center, with your name card and everything. Marilyn tilted her head slightly, studying his face. They never invited me? For a moment, Travis looked like someone who just realized he'd walked into the middle of a story he didn't understand. Oh, he said softly. I didn't know that. I don't suppose you'd still have the paperwork from that evening? She asked, her voice even but laced with quiet precision. Of course. We keep everything digital now. He gestured toward his office. If you don't mind stepping in, I can pull up the agreement. The office was neat and modest, the kind of space run by someone who knew the value of appearances. Travis clicked through his computer system, eyes scanning a list of recent files until he stopped on one. Here we go. He turned the monitor toward her. Signed contract for the Cooper event. Rental, catering, decor package, full deposit. Looks like, yeah, full payment received on September 22nd. Marilyn leaned in slightly, her eyes narrowing as she read the details. The signature field read, Client name, Tina Cooper Billing. Information, Marilyn Cooper. Account ending in 4279. Her stomach twisted, not with surprise, but with confirmation. Travis frowned. Is there a problem? No, Marilyn said calmly. Just verification. He hesitated, sensing something in her tone. Would you like a copy? Actually, she said, pulling out her phone. A photo will do. She snapped 2 clear shots of the screen, the signature line, the payment record, and the final invoice total. Then she lowered her phone and gave him a small, gracious nod. You've been very helpful, Mr. Long. Travis looked uneasy now, as though realizing he might have just stepped into a family matter bigger than paperwork. Mrs. Cooper, if something's wrong, I didn't mean to— You did nothing wrong, she interrupted gently. But I suspect you'll remember this conversation. Her tone wasn't threatening, just precise, like a scalpel tracing a clean incision. He nodded slowly. All right then. As she turned to leave, the sunlight from the lobby windows cut through the glass, catching her reflection, a woman poised, unhurried, eyes cold as the steel in her purse clasp. In the parking lot, she paused beside her car, scrolling through the photos she'd taken. The digital evidence glowed bright on her phone screen. Unarguable, time-stamped truth. She saved the images into her documentation folder and renamed the file, Travis/Evidence Act 1. Just as she locked the screen, another notification appeared from her email. A message from Tina Cooper. We need to talk. You're making a huge mistake. Marilyn's thumb hovered over delete. Then she smiled faintly and closed the phone instead. Inside the event center, the framed photo of her smiling children gleamed under artificial light, an illusion of family unity bought with her own money. Outside, as she started the car, Marilyn whispered into the quiet. Funny thing about celebrations. She eased the car into drive, her eyes fixed on the rearview mirror where the building receded behind her. They look different once you know who paid for them. By the following Monday, Richmond had settled into the gray lull of early November, a sky like wet concrete, and a wind that seemed to carry whispers through every street. Marilyn sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, folders spread neatly around her like a general's war map. Her phone buzzed with another text from Tina. She didn't bother to look. On the screen before her was the file labeled Travis Evidence 1. Beneath it, 3 new folders: photos, contracts, and donation list. Marilyn clicked through each in sequence, assembling pieces of the picture her children had so carelessly painted. Every donor who'd written a check, every line of the event's budget, every image showing her name plastered across banners she never approved. She'd already found the donor list online, hidden in a thank you post from the Family Foundation's website. Each contributor was from the same small circle: old teachers, district retirees, a few mid-level administrators, all people who knew her, trusted her. People who would not appreciate discovering their donations had been used as props. She began printing. 1 copy of everything: receipts, venue photos, social media posts, Tina's self-congratulatory caption that read, "Honoring Mom's legacy of giving back." When the stack was ready, Marilyn slid the pages into a large, unmarked envelope. Across the front, she wrote in block letters, "For District Foundation, donors, confidential, no return address, no signature, just truth," neatly folded. 2 days later, her phone started ringing before breakfast. She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. News travels fast in small professional circles. By noon, the foundation's donor page had vanished from the website. By afternoon, Tina's business social media accounts were locked. Amber's event planning Instagram had gone dark too. Her last post flooded with comments like, "Is this true?" and "You used your mother's name?" Marilyn watched it all unfold from her living room armchair, a quiet queen presiding over the kingdom she'd just turned to ash. Then came the local gossip sites. Family Foundation faces mismanagement questions. Within a day, the school district's HR newsletter quietly removed Logan's name from their mentorship program's highlight section. The official statement was sterile. Program adjustments due to ethical concerns. She didn't smile. Not exactly. But a stillness settled over her, one that felt like balance. That evening, Donna arrived with a box from Coco and Crumb, Richmond's best bakery. She placed it on the table like an offering, then dropped into the chair across from her. "I assume you've seen the fireworks?" Marilyn poured 2 cups of tea. "Hard to miss." Donna grinned. Amber's crying on Facebook Live, Tina's posting quotes about forgiveness, and Logan's pretending he didn't even know about the gala. It's like watching amateur theater. Marilyn stirred her tea slowly. They're creative when cornered. Donna opened the bakery box and revealed a perfectly frosted chocolate cake. Small, rich, unapologetically decadent. "You earned this." Marilyn lifted an eyebrow. "Celebration?" "Commemoration," Donna corrected, slicing it cleanly. "For the woman who proved silence is the loudest weapon in the room." She handed over a plate. "Silent queens still reign, Mare." Marilyn let out a soft laugh, low, genuine, the kind that came from somewhere deep and unguarded. "I'll drink to that." They ate in comfortable quiet, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space between them. Outside, a cold drizzle streaked the windows, but the kitchen was warm, the air fragrant with cocoa and tea leaves. When Donna left an hour later, Marilyn stayed at the table, staring at the flickering reflection of the porch light on her teacup. Her phone buzzed again. Not Tina this time, a name she hadn't seen in 2 weeks. Reese Martin. She opened the message expecting a simple check-in about documents or signatures. Instead, her eyes narrowed at the first line. "Marilyn, just a heads up. Your children contacted our office this morning. They've formally requested copies of your will and trust documents." The rest of the message was polite, procedural, but Marilyn barely read it. The words glowed on the screen like a challenge. She leaned back in her chair, heart steady but her pulse sharp with realization. They'd gone from pleading to prying. Her children weren't just angry anymore. They were investigating. For a long time, she sat in silence, the hum of the house returning like a heartbeat. Then she reached across the table, picked up her planner, and wrote a single line under today's date. "They've made their next move." She capped her pen, folded the note, and tucked it neatly behind her estate file. Her reflection stared back from the dark window. Measured, calculating, alive. "So," she whispered to herself, "the game continues." Outside, rain began to fall harder, tapping the glass in steady rhythm, like applause. The next morning dawned brittle and cold, sunlight slicing across the hardwood floors like thin blades. Marilyn sat at her desk with her reading glasses perched low, scanning the message Reese had sent just after sunrise. "Confirmed. I only provided your children with standard disclosure forms. No content, no figures, no signatures. They have nothing real. Just paper designed to calm curiosity." She reread it twice, the smallest smile touching her lips. Reese was meticulous, the kind of man who understood both the letter and spirit of silence. Her computer chimed again. A new email. From Tina Cooper. Subject: "You've gone too far, Mom." Marilyn hesitated before clicking. The words filled the screen in angry paragraphs. "We know what you're doing. Freezing accounts, locking files, changing everything behind our backs. You're letting that lawyer and Donna manipulate you. We're your family, not them. You're acting paranoid and cruel. If you want to cut us out, just say it instead of playing these games." The last line made her pause. "You're destroying the Cooper legacy." Marilyn leaned back in her chair. "Legacy," she repeated quietly, tasting the word as if it were sour. She closed the laptop without replying. Some messages didn't deserve an answer, especially from someone who'd already written the ending for her. Later that afternoon, the cafe's door chimed as Marilyn entered, shaking the cold from her coat. The space buzzed with soft chatter and the hiss of the espresso machine. She found her usual seat by the window where she and Donna often met and ordered her tea. Earl Grey, no sugar, no rush. But before she could settle, a shadow fell across the table. "Mom." Amber stood there, breathless, sunglasses pushed up in her hair, her expression a mixture of anger and desperation. The scent of her perfume, something sharp and expensive, cut through the cafe's warmth. Marilyn didn't look surprised. "Amber, can we talk?" "You already are." Amber dropped into the chair across from her, voice trembling. "Tina says you're rewriting everything, that we're not in the will anymore, that you made Donna the executor." Marilyn stirred her tea slowly. "Your sister says a lot of things." Amber slammed a hand on the table loud enough to draw glances. "Stop doing that. Stop talking in riddles like you're some mystery we're supposed to solve. We're your children." Marilyn met her gaze, calm, unwavering. "And yet, somehow, you all managed to celebrate my life without me." Amber's voice cracked. "We made a mistake. Is this your way of getting even? Because it's working." Marilyn took a long sip of tea, the cup steady in her hand. "You'll learn what I left behind, when I leave it." Amber stared at her, eyes wide with disbelief. "That's not fair." "Neither," Marilyn said softly, "was using my money to prove you loved me." For a moment neither spoke. The cafe noise dimmed around them, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then Amber pushed back from the table, her chair scraping sharply against the tile. "You've changed," she said. Marilyn smiled faintly. "No, dear, I've stopped apologizing." Amber stood frozen for a heartbeat, her lips parting as if to argue, but nothing came. Then she turned and left, the door slamming hard enough to jingle the bell twice. Marilyn didn't flinch. She simply raised her cup again and finished the last of her tea. 2 days later, Reese's office smelled faintly of leather and rain as he sealed the final envelope of her estate file. "All set," he said, pressing the wax stamp into place. "This version is locked. Any changes require your in-person signature, witnessed and notarized." Marilyn nodded. "Good. Let's keep it that way. I'll store one copy in our vault and courier another to your home. And just to confirm, still keeping all digital backups offline?" "Absolutely," she said. "If they want to dig, let them use shovels." Reese chuckled quietly. "You know, most clients find this process stressful. You seem energized by it." "I find order comforting," Marilyn said, "especially after chaos." She stood, gathering her coat. As she reached for her bag, Reese added, "If they push further, let me know. We can file a privacy block under state statute." Marilyn's reply was smooth, almost amused. "Oh, I doubt they'll go through the courts. They prefer shortcuts." That evening, she drove to a quiet industrial strip on the edge of Chesterfield. The sky hung low, purple with the promise of rain. She parked beside a row of metal roll-up doors, each marked with faded white numbers. Unit B14. She unlocked it, flicking on the single overhead light. Inside, the space smelled of dust and cardboard, a lifetime folded neatly into boxes. She moved with purpose, opening a few containers to check their contents. Her late husband's medals, family albums, the antique jewelry her grandmother once promised would stay in the bloodline. She ran a finger along a silver picture frame, her children as toddlers in a backyard sprinkler. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she wrapped the frame carefully in paper and tucked it deep inside a storage chest. She sealed the box and labeled it in clean, looping handwriting. Private estate. Do not open. When she finished, she locked the unit and slipped the key into her coat pocket. The rain began to fall in earnest now, hammering softly on the corrugated metal door. She stood there for a long moment, listening. The sound was steady, cleansing, like punctuation on a sentence she'd spent a lifetime writing. Then her phone buzzed again. A new email notification glowed against the dark. From Reese Martin. Subject: Update. You should know. Marilyn tapped it open under the glow of the overhead bulb. Your children contacted another law office this afternoon. They're trying to obtain your previous estate drafts. I thought you'd want to be informed. Her pulse didn't quicken. She simply exhaled, watching her breath fog in the cool air. Of course they are, she murmured. Then she slipped her phone into her purse, turned off the light, and walked into the rain. Behind her, the storage door rattled once in the wind, then fell silent, guarding every secret she refused to let them read. It happened on a Thursday, clear, windless, the kind of still day that made even the trees seem to be waiting for something. Marilyn was pruning her back porch geraniums when she saw the car pull into her driveway. Logan's rust-red sedan, cleaner than usual, the windshield reflecting the sharp blue of the sky. He stepped out slowly, carrying a bouquet, lilies and sunflowers, the kind of grocery store mix meant to look heartfelt. For a fleeting moment, he looked like the boy she used to know. Shoulders slouched, uncertainty written across his face, trying to make good after some small failure. But that boy had grown into a man who'd learned to apologize only when it cost him nothing. Marilyn stayed quiet, trimming another stem. She watched him through the porch screen as he walked up the front steps and rang the bell. Once, twice. He shifted his weight, glancing toward the windows. Mom? His voice was soft, almost cautious. It's me. She set her clippers down and waited. He tried again. Look, I brought you something. Can we just talk for a minute? The words carried that tone he used when he needed her help with rent, when he'd forgotten her birthday, when he wanted to borrow just until next week. Marilyn didn't move. After a pause, Logan sighed and placed the flowers gently against the door. I get it, he said quietly. You're mad, but we're family. I'm trying here. His footsteps receded down the porch steps, the car door clicked, and the engine sputtered to life. He drove away without looking back. Marilyn waited until the car disappeared around the corner before opening the door. The flowers lay there, bright and harmless against the dull gray mat. She picked them up, inhaled the faint scent of cheap perfume and pollen, and dropped them into the trash bin beside the porch. Trying, she murmured, just not at the right things. 2 days later, Tina's handwriting appeared in her mailbox. Neat, block letters on thick stationery that smelled faintly of her expensive candle line. The note read, We're family. We fix things. Stop shutting us out before it's too late. No signature, no apology, just the same tone of command dressed up as care. Marilyn folded the note once, twice, and slid it back into the envelope. She didn't throw it away. Instead, she tucked it into her planner under the tab marked Records. Later that afternoon, she met Donna at their usual cafe. Donna had already claimed their window seat, sipping an iced coffee despite the chill outside. You got the flowers then? She asked, smirking before Marilyn even spoke. Right into the trash, Marilyn said, taking her seat. Good, Donna grinned. And Tina's love letter? In the file with the rest. Evidence of selective remorse? Donna laughed, that low, throaty laugh that always made heads turn. They just don't get it, do they? Still trying to script the ending like you're a character in their show. Marilyn stirred her tea, watching the steam curl upward. They think silence means hesitation, but it's just focus. On what? Marilyn smiled. Finishing the work. That evening, she sat at her desk reviewing the latest packet Reese had couriered over. Her estate binder was thick now. Every clause cross-referenced, every contingency accounted for. One section caught her eye. Contest prohibition. She underlined the paragraph with a slow, deliberate stroke of her pen. No party named or unnamed shall contest the terms of this trust without forfeiting all claims to distributed assets. She signed and dated the amendment, the pen gliding smoothly across the page, a single signature to bar an entire bloodline from clawing their way back. After sealing the document, she placed it in a fireproof envelope and set it in the small home safe beneath her desk. The lock clicked softly, a final punctuation mark on decades of misplaced forgiveness. The next morning, she made her way to the post office with a small stack of anonymous envelopes. Each was addressed to a different former coworker from her years at the district office, retired custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. Inside each envelope was a cashier's check and a handwritten note that simply read, "For the kindness that kept things running when no one noticed." She slipped the envelopes into the drop box one by one, watching them vanish through the narrow metal slot. No fanfare, no signature, just quiet restitution. When she returned home, Donna was waiting on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. "Making morning deliveries, were you?" Marilyn handed her the mail key. "Something like that." They sat in silence for a while, the wind nudging the last leaves off the trees. Donna glanced at her. "You ever think about forgiving them?" Marilyn took a slow sip, the warmth of the coffee steady in her hands. "Forgiveness isn't the issue. Access is." Donna chuckled softly. "You're something else." Marilyn turned to her, eyes sharp but kind. "No, I'm finally just being me." For a long moment neither spoke. The afternoon light softened, painting the porch in pale gold. Somewhere down the street, a wind chime rang. Then Marilyn's phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number this time. She checked the screen. Private caller. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened slightly. She set the mug down, the ceramic clinking softly against the table. "Seems they're still not finished trying," she said quietly. And as the wind rustled through the dogwoods, the phone kept ringing, steady, insistent, unanswered. It started quietly, as most betrayals did, with an envelope. Marilyn found it wedged among her mail one Monday morning, the return address stamped from a Richmond law firm she didn't recognize. The letterhead was glossy, deliberate, expensive. She unfolded the papers slowly, the words sharp and clinical even before she reached the second line. Petition to review competency and estate authority. Cooper v. Cooper. Her children had filed to challenge her mental capacity. For a long moment she just stared at the page. The air seemed to drain from the room, replaced by the faint hum of the refrigerator in the next room. Then she exhaled, long and even, folded the petition neatly in half, and placed it on the counter beside her morning coffee. "Of course," she said softly. "They never learn." By noon, Reese had called. His tone was calm, but Marilyn could hear the irritation behind it, the kind reserved for absurd cases. "They're alleging diminished capacity," he said, "claiming you've been coerced by a third party into restructuring your estate. They cited your age and recent erratic behavior, whatever that means." Marilyn smiled faintly into the phone. Erratic must mean effective. "I'll handle it," Reese assured her. "You just show up looking as formidable as you are. We'll make this quick." 2 days later, Reese's conference room became a war room. Stacks of binders filled the table. Financial records, medical evaluations, notarized statements. Donna sat at one end, reading over her affidavit for the fifth time. "She's sharper than ever," Donna said, tapping the paper. "And that's before coffee." Reese chuckled but didn't look up from his laptop. "This will be over in minutes. Their case has more emotion than evidence." Marilyn, seated beside him, adjusted her glasses and signed one final form. "Emotion is all they've ever used. Let's show them how far logic can go." Reese looked up at her then, almost smiling. "You're enjoying this?" "I'm prepared," Kyo corrected. "There's a difference." Friday morning, the hearing room smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Across the small chamber, Tina sat stiffly in a navy blazer that was just a shade too expensive for sincerity. Amber fidgeted beside her, scrolling her phone when she thought no one was watching. Logan slouched at the end of the row, avoiding his mother's gaze entirely. Reese leaned toward Marilyn. "We'll keep it brief. Judge McCleary doesn't tolerate nonsense." When the bailiff called the session to order, Tina's attorney, a sleek young man who seemed more comfortable in press photos than courtrooms, stood to speak first. "Your Honor, my clients are concerned for their mother's well-being," he began. "Mrs. Cooper has made significant financial and legal changes that appear inconsistent with her prior history. We believe undue influence may be at play." Judge McCleary arched an eyebrow. "Do you have medical evidence, counsel?" The attorney hesitated. "Not at this time." Reese stood smoothly. "Then may we proceed with evidence of her competence instead?" The judge nodded. Reese began with the documents. Medical reports signed by Marilyn's longtime physician confirming no cognitive impairment. Banking records annotated in Marilyn's own precise handwriting. Financial audits that included itemized explanations down to the cent. He laid out each page with quiet precision, the rhythm of a man dismantling an argument brick by brick. Then he presented Donna's affidavit. "Ms. Chase is a retired legal clerk and Mrs. Cooper's long-term associate," Reese said. "Her sworn statement affirms the testator's capacity and intent." Judge McCleary read the line aloud, his tone unreadable. "She's sharper than ever." When it was Reese's turn to rest the case, the judge didn't even look up. "Is that all, counselor?" Reese smiled faintly. "That's everything, Your Honor." The judge turned to Tina's lawyer. "Anything further?" A long, uncomfortable silence. "No, Your Honor." The gavel hit once, clean, decisive. Petition dismissed. 15 minutes, just like Reese had predicted. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp and bright, a faint wind cutting through the last of the morning fog. Marilyn walked beside Reese, her heels clicking against the concrete in calm rhythm. "That's that," Reese said, flipping through his file. "I'll file for reimbursement of legal costs by end of day. Given the frivolous nature of the suit, the judge will likely assign fees to the petitioners." Marilyn's expression barely shifted, but there was a spark behind her eyes. "Make sure it's itemized. I want them to see exactly how much their assumptions cost." Reese nodded. "Done." They reached the curb where Donna waited in her car, leaning against the hood with sunglasses and a grin that could slice glass. "Well?" she called out. "Dismissed," Reese said simply. Donna let out a low whistle. "Told you. You can't outplay the woman who wrote the rules." Marilyn opened the passenger door but paused, looking back at the courthouse. Through the glass doors, she could see her children in the lobby, Tina gesturing wildly, Amber near tears, Logan already walking away. For a moment, something like sadness flickered across her face. Not regret, just the faint ache of memory, the echo of a mother who once would have chased after them. Then it was gone. She turned back to Donna. "Let's go home." As they pulled away, her phone buzzed in her purse. A message from Reese. "Trust fully protected. filed under priority classification. No contest clause locked and certified. Congratulations, Mrs. Cooper. They can't touch a cent. Marilyn closed the message and looked out the window as the courthouse shrank behind them. Her reflection in the glass was calm, composed, resolute. But beneath it, her eyes carried something new, an awareness that the battle wasn't just about money anymore. It was about legacy, power, and the quiet, devastating clarity of being right. They wanted a case, she murmured, almost to herself. Now they have one. The car turned onto the open road, the sun breaking through the clouds in clean, merciless light. Winter settled early that year, cold, clean, and quiet. The kind of quiet that made everything feel final. Marilyn sat at her kitchen table beneath the soft hum of the pendant light, her pen gliding across thick stationery embossed with her initials. The stack of envelopes beside her was small, 3 in total, each addressed in her careful hand. Tina, Amber, Logan. She wrote them the way she always had. Each letter different, each weighted with a mix of truth and restraint. To Tina, she wrote about pride, how leadership could be a gift or a weapon, depending on how one chose to wield it. To Amber, she wrote about masks, the charm that covered greed, the illusion that love could be performed. To Logan, she wrote about accountability, how passivity was not innocence, and silence was not peace. Each letter ended the same way. I loved you all more than you understood, and I trusted you less than you realized. When she was finished, she sealed the envelopes with a firm press of her thumb and placed them in a manila folder marked "To be delivered by counsel." Reese had agreed to handle it. No copies, she'd told him. No discussions. Just delivery. Understood, he'd said. When they open these, they'll know it's final. That was the point. 2 weeks later, the consequences began to land. Tina's consulting firm, her pride and her identity, started bleeding clients almost overnight. Word of the foundation's scandal had spread, and donors were fleeing faster than she could issue statements. Her social media went from polished brand posts to long defensive rants about misunderstanding and family betrayal. By December, the company's office sign had come down. Amber fared no better. The boutique event firm she'd built from networking and borrowed charm crumbled under gossip. Vendors refused contracts. Clients withdrew deposits. Within a month, she sold her condo, deleted every trace of her curated life, and quietly moved out of Richmond. No announcement, no goodbye. Logan's unraveling was slower but more predictable. His mentorship termination led to a chain reaction. Creditors calling, car repossessed, one final attempt to refinance that never went through. When he filed for bankruptcy, the paperwork listed debts that read like a history of dependency: personal loans, family favors, temporary assistance from both sisters, 3 children, 3 collapses. Not because of cruelty, because of gravity. Marilyn didn't gloat, she simply observed. Consequences had their own rhythm, and for the first time, she didn't have to conduct them. By spring, the air softened again. Dogwoods bloomed in pale pink outside her porch. The scholarship program, the Cooper Service Fellowship, had launched quietly through Reese's office, its recipients chosen with care: cafeteria workers, bus drivers, janitors, and their children. On a mild Saturday afternoon, Marilyn hosted a small luncheon for the first award recipients in her backyard. She wore a blue linen dress, simple and unpretentious, and served sandwiches, fruit salad, and peach tea. The laughter of the guests, the real kind, free of performance, filled the air. One young man, a shy 20-year-old with a cafeteria badge clipped to his belt, raised his glass toward her. "Mrs. Cooper, my mom said to tell you thank you. She said this changes everything." Marilyn smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "Then it's already worth it," Donna clinked her glass lightly against Marilyn's. "Look at you," she teased. "Hosting a celebration you actually belong in." Marilyn laughed softly. "About time." When the last guests left and the tables were cleared, the yard was quiet again, just the rustle of leaves and the faint hum of cicadas. Marilyn gathered the folded tablecloths, humming under her breath. That's when she noticed it. An envelope resting on the porch railing, the paper slightly damp from the evening air. No stamp, no name, just her address written in thick black ink. She frowned, glancing toward the gate. The latch was still locked. Curiosity prickled at the edge of caution. She opened the envelope carefully, sliding out a single sheet of paper. The message was short, written in block letters. "You'll regret this." That was it. No signature, no hint of who had left it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, slanted, uneven, but the words were heavy, deliberate. For the first time in months, Marilyn felt her chest tighten. Not fear, exactly, just the slow recognition that silence had ripples, and not all of them stayed small. She folded the letter once, then again, and walked inside. Under the kitchen light, she slipped it into her documentation folder. Just above the one labeled Travis Evidence 1. Donna's voice echoed in her mind. Silent queens, still rain. Marilyn looked out the window, the last of the daylight fading into violet dusk. Her reflection stared back. Older, sharper, unyielding. "Maybe," she whispered, "but even queens need guards." She turned off the light, the house plunging into quiet darkness, while the envelope on her desk caught the faint glint of moonlight. Thin, cold, and waiting. The letter sat on the counter all night, untouched. By morning, the ink had bled faintly at the edges where dew had kissed it. Marilyn slipped it into a clear plastic sleeve, slid it into her documentation folder, and drove straight to Reese's office. The air was brittle, the kind that made sound carry. Her heels echoed through the marble-floored lobby as she entered. Calm, but deliberate. Reese looked up from his desk the moment she stepped in, his expression shifting from polite focus to concern. "Mrs. Cooper." He stood. "You look like someone who's just added a new chapter to the file." Marilyn placed the folder on his desk and opened it to the final page. The letter lay there, sealed behind its protective sleeve. He read it once, then again. His jaw set. "When did this show up?" "Last night," she said evenly, "on my porch. Gate was locked." Reese frowned. Could be a scare tactic. Maybe one of them, or someone trying to play hero on their behalf. "I thought of that," she said. "But this isn't Tina's vocabulary, and Logan can't spell regret without autocorrect." He cracked a smile despite himself. "Point taken." She crossed her arms. "I don't want drama, Reese. Just documentation." He nodded. "I'll have it logged and make sure there's an official trail. You mind if I forward this to a contact at the precinct? They'll probably just file an incident report, but it's something." "Do it," she said. 2 hours later, Officer Bennett from Chesterfield PD stood in Marilyn's kitchen, clipboard in hand. He was courteous, middle-aged, and clearly humoring what he assumed was a harmless neighborhood scare. "No forced entry?" he asked, jotting notes. "None," Marilyn said. "Gate locked, porch light on. Whoever left it knew where to stop." Bennett nodded, his tone professional but light. "We'll file this as a general incident. Could be kids. Could be someone venting. But if you notice anything else, footprints, missing mail, odd vehicles, call us right away." Marilyn gave a polite smile. "Of course." He left, leaving behind the faint smell of rain and cheap aftershave. She stood at the door a moment longer, watching his cruiser disappear down the street. The neighborhood returned to its usual quiet, the hum of a lawnmower somewhere in the distance, the Rhythmic bark of a dog 2 houses over. Silence had returned. But now, it had weight. By week's end, Marilyn had hired a small security company to install cameras around the house. 3 exterior, 1 interior by the front door. The technician showed her how to use the app, how to check footage remotely, how to set alerts for unusual motion. He tried to make small talk while testing the system. "You'd be surprised how often people regret not doing this sooner," he said. Marilyn gave a thin smile. "I don't regret much these days." When he left, the hum of the new equipment blended into the sound of her refrigerator. The house had eyes now. Quiet, patient ones. For the first few nights, she checked the feeds before bed. Nothing. No movement beyond the occasional passing car or the neighbor's cat slinking along the fence. By the 5th night, she stopped looking. Days slipped back into routine. Morning tea on the porch. Evening calls from Donna, the familiar rhythm of calm that had taken her nearly a lifetime to earn. "Any more surprises?" Donna asked one afternoon as they walked the looping trail behind the park. The trees were bare now, branches like dark lace against a pale sky. "None," Marilyn said. "The police think it's nothing." Donna adjusted her scarf, smirking. "Maybe they're right. Or maybe whoever left it realized you're not the type to scare easy." "I don't scare," Marilyn said. "I prepare." Donna laughed. "That's my girl." They finished the walk in comfortable silence, shoes crunching over the gravel. The sound was steady, grounding. That night, after a quiet dinner, Marilyn sat at her desk reviewing a scholarship report from Reese's office. Her phone buzzed once, a new email notification. The name on the sender line made her pause. From Logan Cooper. Subject: no excuses. She opened it. The message was short, unpolished, raw. "Mom, I know sorry doesn't fix anything, and I'm not asking for money or forgiveness. I just want you to know I understand now. What we did, what we lost. I hope the world's treating you kinder than we did. LL." Marilyn read it twice, her throat tightening slightly. There was no manipulation in the tone, no hint of an angle, just quiet reckoning. She set her glasses down and looked toward the window, where the faint reflection of the porch light shimmered against the dark. "Finally," she whispered. "One of you learned to use your own words." She clicked archive, not delete, and closed the laptop. Before heading to bed, she stepped out onto the porch. The air was cold but still, the moon full enough to cast silver light across the yard. Her cameras blinked green, small and watchful. Nothing moved. Marilyn stood there for a while, arms folded against the chill, until she caught her reflection faintly mirrored in the glass door. Older, steadier, unafraid. Behind her, the house was silent. Safe. Or so it seemed, until a soft rustle came from the hedge at the far edge of the lawn. She froze. Not startled, just attentive. A moment later, a squirrel darted out and bounded toward the fence. Marilyn exhaled, almost amused. "Not tonight," she murmured. Then she turned off the porch light and went inside, her silhouette swallowed by the glow of the hallway lamp. Outside, the wind picked up again, scattering dry leaves across the driveway, one of them brushing against the security camera's lens, blurring its view for just a second too long. Spring came early to Richmond that year, soft and forgiving. The morning air was cool enough to carry the scent of rain, but warm enough to coax color back into the trees. Marilyn stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the small silver pin on her jacket. A modest symbol, nothing flashy, but it caught the light just enough to draw attention when she moved. She wasn't one for ceremonies, but the community insisted. The local paper had run a piece titled "Quiet Benefactor of Chesterfield, the Woman Behind the Cooper Service Fellowship." Someone had nominated her for the Regional Philanthropy Award, and despite her best effort to decline, Reese had convinced her to attend. "It's not publicity," he'd said. "It's closure." The event was held at the downtown Civic Hall under high arched ceilings that made every sound a little more significant. The audience was small: teachers, volunteers, local officials, and a handful of scholarship recipients dressed in their best clothes. Marilyn sat near the front, her posture impeccable, her expression calm. When her name was called, there was polite applause, some genuine, some curious. She walked to the podium without hurry. The award, a crystal plaque etched with her name, waited on the stand. She took it in her hands and looked out at the faces before her. Students who reminded her of those early years in the district office, colleagues who'd almost forgotten her name until this moment, and strangers who thought they knew what generosity looked like. Her speech was short. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady but soft. "I've learned that silence can be two things: a shield or a sword. The difference is what you're protecting." A pause. The room leaned in. "I protected what mattered. The rest took care of itself." She smiled once, briefly, and stepped back from the microphone. The applause came like rain, gentle, uneven, but real. As she walked off the stage, one of the scholarship recipients, a young woman in a plain green dress, hurried forward and hugged her. It was quick, impulsive, full of warmth. "Thank you," the girl said against her shoulder. "You changed my mom's life." Marilyn held her for a moment longer than expected. "No," she said softly. "Your mom changed her own. I just cleared the noise." By late afternoon, the house smelled of soil and sunlight. Marilyn knelt in the backyard, hands buried in cool dirt, as she pressed the roots of a young dogwood tree into the earth. The sapling leaned slightly, fragile but promising. Donna stood nearby, holding a small watering can like a scepter. "You sure about planting it there? That spot gets a lot of wind." Marilyn brushed her palms together, dirt streaking her gloves. "Good," she said. "Let it learn early." Donna smiled. "You and your metaphors." Marilyn patted the last bit of soil into place and stood, brushing off her knees. "Legacy grows slow," she murmured. "But it grows truer when no one's watching." They sat on the porch afterward, the golden light stretching long across the yard. Donna handed her a glass of iced tea, condensation slipping down the sides. "To endings," Donna said. Marilyn clinked her glass lightly. "To quiet ones." The breeze carried the faint sound of church bells from somewhere down the road. For a while they said nothing, just watched the new tree sway gently in the light, as if nodding approval. Donna leaned back with a sigh. "So what now? You've won the war, built your empire, scared the daylights out of your kids. What's next for Queen Cooper?" Marilyn smiled. "Peace. The kind you don't have to apologize for." Later that evening, she found an envelope waiting in her inbox. Digital this time, from Reese. Subject: Final filing complete message. The trust is now fully protected under state and federal statute. They can't touch a cent. Congratulations, Marilyn. It's done. R. She read the words twice, then closed her laptop and sat back, letting the quiet settle around her. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, the faint creak of the house breathing in the night. It was all familiar, all hers. Outside, the dogwood rustled softly in the breeze. Its leaves were thin, almost translucent, catching the glow from the porch light like a living flame. Marilyn stepped out to the railing, sipping the last of her tea. The air smelled of wet earth and promise. For the first time in years, her shoulders eased. Not from triumph, but release. She looked toward the dark horizon and smiled, the kind of smile that held both gratitude and vengeance in equal measure. "They used me for the party," she whispered, setting her glass down. I use them for the proof. The night wind moved gently through the branches, carrying her words into the quiet. A final confession to no one and everyone at once. And in the stillness that followed, Marilyn Cooper, the woman they had underestimated, the woman who had rebuilt herself from silence, finally had what she'd been crafting all along: peace. The kind she paid for, planned for, and owned entirely.